Packers fans out here to stay. Cheeseheads green and gold all day. Jordan Love lead us to the bay. Every game we find a way. Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for all, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for all, you know. Green and gold gonna glow. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown.
Aloha and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we continue on along with our 2026 draft preview with Andrew Mertig as we cover linebackers. Andrew, thank you for joining us. Well, I should say thank you for joining Joe again, and nice to meet you.
Yeah, super excited to be here. This is officially my first actual draft discussion of the year, so much different than prior years, but super happy to be here.
That's how we work things, you know. We try to make sure this is the first one people get to, or the only one in certain other people's cases, like Sarah next week. So, but it's always
bribery and blackmail are choices, are weapons of choice. But no,
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, often it doesn't. But this is one of the few cases where it did.
But it's always good to have the doc on the podcast, and you know, we were just talking some about the position group before Mike jumped on and we started recording. So I'm really looking forward to what this discussion is going to be.
Oh, you should hit the record button already. That's what it sounds like to me. But
well, if somebody wouldn't have been wasting time.
Hey, 7 Eastern or 7 Central, you said, and it is 7 Central, but either way. But like I said, Andrew, thank you for joining us. Just to set the backdrop, not the boundary. The Packers have been busy this week. Free agency officially started. A lot of things happened. Okay, wait. Joe, I've totally lost my marbles. The Zaire Franklin trade had happened before we did our last episode, right?
It had been announced, but it couldn't take effect until, what was it,
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's obviously the big one for this episode. So, and the corresponding move to go with it is because we traded for Zaire Franklin, who does have a couple years left on his deal. Quay Walker was allowed to leave in free agency and sign with the Raiders. Other than that, it's been a lot more moves around the periphery or buffering up our special teams with bringing back Christian Welch and, Nick Niemann, who were two of the team's special teams standouts.
Jeez, Mike must have been hitting the booze before coming on.
Oh, yeah. Just to last through this episode. But no, seriously. So, as it stands right now, and I don't know why Welch isn't showing up on the team's site. Is that not official? But whatever, Packers, get on that. So far, they have their listed linebackers on roster as Edge Cooper, the aforementioned Zaire Franklin, Teron Hopper, Jamon Johnson, holdover, signed to a futures deal, Isaiah McDuffie, who's in the last year of his contract extension, Nick Niemann, and we'll just call him the new international man of mystery since Zane Anderson made off in free agency, and Christian Welch was definitely reported by multiple sources to have re-signed with the Packers, and for whatever reasons is not listed as a Packer by the Packers official website, but to each their own.
They got him still listed on the site, on the roster, as an unrestricted free agent.
How
so
odd.
They must not have updated their... Either that or it fell through. I'm trying to look through it, and everything Packer Wire and Packer News and Yahoo and all them say that he signed a contract.
Hey, Wikipedia says he is currently a Packer, so that is the most concrete thing that you can find on the interwebs. So we will stick with that. But Andrew, I'm sure Joe has given you the rundown, but we've started out with the official initial note where the roster stands so far and how it looks going into the draft. We're finally getting to do one of these episodes with free agency relatively in the rearview mirror, especially for this position. But how are you feeling about the Packers, setup going into the draft and where this fits in terms of their, on the need meter for the Packers?
Yeah, for me, I think the Packers are set up pretty well, right? Like you of course would love to have 3 all pros and always be able to play base. But the reality of the situation is for an NFL franchise, they have what you think is a star linebacker in Edgerrin Cooper. I think you have a really solid player, a legitimate NFL starter in Zaire Franklin. So whatever they're paying him, I don't care right now, right? Like you just plug him in. He's your number 2. And then between Tyron Hopper's potential development and then Isaiah McDuffie just being what he is, a solid player, unspectacular, somebody who's capable as an NFL player. I think you're 4 deep. And given the fact that we anticipate the Packers are going to play nickel most of the time, I think 4 is fine. Would I love to see, Hopper take a huge step or a hop forward? Yeah, 100%. Like that would be really great. That would, 1, justify his draft pick in the 3rd round, and 2, I think really solidify this unit. However, I think they're in a good enough situation. Now, if Edge Cooper misses time, yes, they are in trouble. But I think most teams around the league would be facing a pretty similar situation.
Yeah, and kind of to speak to what you were saying with regards to Franklin, he had a down 2025, but he led the league, I think, in tackles in 2024, and even last year was amongst the leaders. But I mean, if you just count his, and so I believe in terms of cap number, his cap number is 8 million ish this season, and it's like 10 ish next season. But if you just go by the average cost of his contract over the duration of his deal is only like 17th in terms of like where it ranks league wide. So just to kind of speak to, what you're paying for versus, hypothetically what you're expecting to get out of the position, that's a pretty solid feedback from what you're hoping to get. And like you noted, the guy you're hoping / expecting to be the stud at the position is still on year 3 of a rookie contract. And that's really where you make your money worth it while at any position, but especially one where the league still doesn't know how to do the value of what is an inside linebacker, off-ball linebacker in the NFL. And then kind of to further your point too, Andrew, is like, we still haven't gotten a solid answer on what base defense, quote unquote, is going to be for the Packers this season. We've heard both sides of the coin that, different insiders, and LaFleur and Gannon have been pretty mum on the topic, but we've heard a lot of insiders state like, oh, Gannon's, got a little bit more background in this or that. He did more 3-4 in his time with, in these situations, or he did more 4-3 here. So it's like, honestly, it could go either way. And I think, honestly, that kind of just helps where the Packers are with their situation. Because like you said, Andrew, they have 2 solid to very good options at linebacker. And then they have some, they have Hopper who, different people will say has different levels of upside. You have McDuffie who can come in and just be a tree trunk and run support. And
the dog didn't like that one.
No. And
now Mike lost his train of thought.
Yeah.
And so to speak, where it remains to be seen how they're going to value the position. It's one where you could take another like Cooper type swing if the right player falls, but there's not the like clear need like when we took Cooper or even when we took Quay in 2022 where it's like, oh, like they have one or none at linebacker kind of thing. Yeah. Like the Franklin trade, while, last week's episode, Joe and I did talk about how like you do hate to trade a guy from a position where it was already a need to but at least you know in the medium it's like okay you should have shored up and answered some questions at another position. So we kind of poo-pooed that trade a little bit a week ago because it's like okay, like not that Wooden was like the next all pro, but he did give you some answers to the test at one position. At least Franklin, even in a coming off a down year, it's like, okay, like you're looking to him to be the steady veteran. And as we've noted on many episodes, and as Andrew noted today already, Edge is supposed to be the guy that's going to be that second level defender who's going to take a step and be that stud along that part of the defense.
I think the core that we have now, and where everybody kind of sets, where they all kind of set. I know we'll talk a little bit about the free agents here in a minute with if there's any that fit right now, but I think the best course that they're going to do is probably spend a draft pick on one just so they have the 4-year cheap contract in case, because Edge will be coming up on year 3, so he's got one more year on his deal after this. McDuffie's only got one more year. I think this is his last year on his deal. Franklin only has another year after this. Hopper's got to be 2 years left on his?
Yeah, he'll have 27 and 28.
And you didn't even mention Jamon Johnson, whether he'll do anything, be productive or whatever, if he's just going to end up being a special teams guy. So, I have a feeling that they will spend a high-ish draft pick on a guy depending on who's there, just so they have something going forward in case, let's say Edge prices himself out of town, or Zaire has a shit season and they decide to cut ties with them. They decide they don't want to bring McDuffie back. They, whatever the case is, they at least have a guy that they can go forward with and kind of groom to be that heir apparent.
Yeah, kind of what you're speaking to, Joe, is like the only way this season really goes tits up for the Packers at linebacker is if Edge gets hurt, Zaire just continues to trend downward, and Hopper just is a nothing. Like that's really it. That's the only way this position is just a sunk cost. But I do think that Edge's upside, and then especially because him and Quay were kind of similar players in the sense that they're both like kind of havoc creators in terms of like you want them attacking the line of scrimmage, shooting A gaps and stuff like that. And the ideal is that Zaire is a guy that can hold down the middle and allow you to be really creative with Edge, and that way that you can just ask Edge to be the very best version of what he is, as opposed to like, okay, you two need to create matched chaos so that it'll just like cover up a bunch of holes that you could create, kind of thing. So all that to be said, Andrew, it's pick 52. The Packers.
Well, hang on. Let's do the free agent part of it.
Oh,
are there any free agents that really kind of fit the mold, or do we just skip that and go to draft picks?
I don't think the Packers are going to make a move in free agency at this point.
Okay.
I think the position is pretty well settled unless they fall in love with somebody in the draft. So I would maybe go the counter of you, Joe, a little bit, which is fine. I mean, if they drafted a linebacker, I would love to see this team play more base, especially if they're going to run a 4-3-ish system. I think the best teams in the league have linebackers that can run with people, and they're allowed to play base a little bit. And so I'll talk about that in the draft a little bit. If there was one free agent, though, that I could see being both connected to the Packers and a value, Matt Milano, he's still unsigned as of this moment. Coming from Buffalo, Bobby Babich is in Green Bay now, so obviously there's a relationship there. Just a guy, I think, if healthy, right, big question mark, and I know we don't love that in Green Bay, But like if healthy, he is a really top-notch linebacker. I think he's lost enough of his athleticism that he's not in that elite category anymore, but he's not going to get paid like it anyways. And so I think if he wanted to take like a smaller veteran deal, come in, be another leader, that room gets really tight really fast because they're probably only going to keep 5 or 6. And so suddenly, we're looking at who we can cut for special teams purposes. But I love what Milano does, and I would be big time in on that kind of upside.
Just to speak to, like you said, what cost and injury concern, he's coming off of the past. So last year he played 12 games. The year before that, only 4. The year before that, only 5 games. So concerns with the injury, but also you would hope that would drive his cost down. He's 32, coming off his second contract already in the NFL. So you kind of weigh those two, and that's the thing is like a lot of people talk about how like, oh, like, what are the pros and cons of being the youngest team in the NFL and stuff. I do think that it's really hard to be a contending team when you just are so young at every position. You do, for lack of a better term, you do just need some adults in the room. You need, like, obviously not necessarily the impact, but like you need those vets like a Charles Woodson or a Ryan Pickett who can kind of just say like to second year BJ Raji, hey man, like this is what the team needs you to do, go do it kind of thing and stuff. And or just can be trusted to be a little bit of that, quote unquote coach on the field for the team. And Milano would definitely be partly an investment in that, and partly just like he's seen it all, done it all kind of thing. And as Andrew pointed out, there may be some reservations on can he still do all the things he used to do, but that's where you would hope that the cost wouldn't be as high, and you get the like not hometown discount, but the familiar with the coach discount kind of situation. So,
and that's where I would throw the other one in, Akeem Davis Gaither, because of him having experience in a Gannon defense and having, I guess, limited success in it. I don't know how well he did in Arizona, but yeah, those are the only two that I could really think of, unless I still wonder about McDuffie, because I think McDuffie stuck around mainly special teams, and because Hafley loved him, recruited him, had him at Boston College, and then was able to get him again with in Green Bay. So I wonder if he could somehow be a casualty, a 53-man casualty, depending on if they get a draft pick that they like, or maybe there's a cut that happens, so the Packers are like, hey, we like him more than we like Isaiah, something like that. So maybe we can ship him down to Miami for a day 3 pick or something.
We love Tinfoil Joe when he comes out of his cabin in the woods. So,
well, like I was telling,
just teasing.
no, and I get it. I just, like I told Andrew before we started recording, it's not that I don't like McDuffie. He's very limited in the aspects that he can do as a starter. If he's just a backup guy, a rotational guy with a special teams ace, I'm for it. But he's not a guy that I want to see in coverage again. He's more of the downhill type guy that you want him more to the line of scrimmage. But if somebody gets out past him, then, are you going to be able to do anything with it? So if we can get an upgrade over that, and maybe that's Tyron Hopper, maybe that's so-and-so draft pick that the Packers take, maybe it's an Akeem Gaithers. I don't know. I for what Isaiah McDuffie is, I would rather have an upgrade than have him back on as a starter. And something that you said about we still don't know what the defense is going to be. I think it was Silverstein said to somebody that asked him for like the 100th time, have they decided that? He said both. So, I understand it's going to be a hybrid thing, but I think because of the Hargrave signing, because of what the Packers have already on roster, they are going to be more of a 4-3 defense than they are a 3-4. It just, I don't know, it boggles my mind that they would consider going back to a 3-4 in just 2 years of having a 4-3.
I think I think part of the appeal to them is that in the 3-4, even though they don't have quite the right body types for it, you have one less linebacker and one less D lineman that your D tackle body type that you're relying on. Like I said, they don't have the ideal fits for those, but
I was
I
just
can
going to say
understand
they have more fits for a 4-3 than they do a 3-4.
And I completely agree with you on that. But I can see where they kind of where Gannon, especially because he's the new head on that side of the ball and all that kind of stuff. He's like, I can do more things if you allow me, that whole conversation, but we're not a fly on those walls.
I get it, but with the Hargrave signing, he had more success in the Gannon run 4-3 than he did elsewhere. Yeah. So if they signed him to be what he was when he was in Philly, 4-3 is going to have to be the way they're going to do it.
Yeah, I would say, sorry to
go Andrew.
But I would say if the Packers are going to sign a veteran linebacker, it's probably going to happen after the draft. And so maybe the draft doesn't fall the way they want to. They have one less pick than they were expecting. Maybe, the UDFAs are not exactly what they're hoping for. And then I think you get like Joker breaking the pool stick over his knee and saying, all right, it's McDuffie or this new guy we're bringing in. One of you's making the roster.
We usually get Star Wars or that references. That's great that he brought it in the Dark Knight one.
Yes. And the one thing that I will say, and it kind of ties into what you're saying about McDuffie, Joe, is like the one thing they lost in Quay going out the door is they don't have a taller, like bigger linebacker on roster anymore. They're, Edge is like their tall guy at 6'2" now. And, Quay had his faults in coverage, but it did matter that he was 6'4" running up the seam when he was playing, especially when they were playing like a Tampa 2 thing. You had to still throw it over the top of him. And that honestly is what hurts McDuffie the most, is like, it wouldn't be as big of an issue if he was a run stuffing line of scrimmage player, if he was even 6'2" or 6'3", but because he's like a sawed off 6 foot guy, and he's not very athletic, and he's because you add in that like his physical limitations compound his athletic limitations. It's the the situation I bring up is like Takeo Spikes. It was like, oh my god, Takeo Spikes ran like a 5.040 kind of thing, but the Pats made him work because he was like 6'3", 250, and it's like you still have to throw over the top of him in the middle of their defense kind of thing. Whereas like McDuffie, it's like the film from the Eagles season opener in 2024 exists. The Thanksgiving Lions game from last season exists, where it's just like, oh, there he is, and I'm just going to put it 2 feet over his head, and he's going to jump and do his best, but it's like he might as well not be there kind of thing. And so
unless they trust Nick Neiman, who's 6'3", 234.
Right, or Welch, who is also like 6'3" or 6'4". So yeah, and I do think that's why Welch got some looks. I think that he knew the defense better than Hopper, and also they're like, we need that body type out there because, part of closing off middle of the field zones is just having bigger people there and stuff. But we've covered where the Packers stand, what their free agent options are. Let's get into the draft. So as I was saying before, Andrew, the board has fallen horribly for the Packers' top needs. The corners are gone. The D tackles are gone. There's not even a receiver or a tackle, an offensive tackle or a tight end who's worth a damn at 52. Who in that wild scenario are you like, if this guy is on the board at 52, Goot, just send the pick in and we'll live with it?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, okay, first, let me start here. Linebackers that will not be available, right? Unless there's a gas mask video or something.
Excellent reference.
Yes.
He listens to the show, obviously.
Maybe we just all have the same references. So Arvell Reese, Ohio State, whether you want to call him off-ball linebacker, small edge, whatever, like he's long gone. Sonny Styles is also from Ohio State. He's going to be, a top 10, top 15 pick for sure. CJ Allen from Georgia probably goes in the first round. And then I think there's a legitimate pathway for any of the other linebackers to fall to Green Bay. And if you're saying this is a situation where the board fell horribly, maybe those linebackers got pushed by, some of the big run stuffing nose tackles, the corners, the other positions that Green Bay would be interested in. So I think you're in a ballpark. There's Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas, Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, Jake Galday from Cincinnati, Josiah Trotter from Missouri. Those players, according to the NFL mock draft database, and mostly fall within my scoring right in the same range. And that's kind of that second tier. And then there's a big gap, and then probably like one guy who might be available in the third that would be a value, and then everybody else is like day 3. So this is a good class in that it has some really top-notch players, but it's like, how do you separate those other players? My favorite one right now is Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech. I don't know if the Packers would be interested because he's a lighter linebacker. To me, he screamed like kind of athletic on tape, but like everything else you loved. He was instinctive. His fundamentals were super good. He's a solid tackler. He's pretty solid in coverage. And then he tested out of his mind at the combine. And so now I'm thinking like, well, if they do want to go a little bit more base, a little bit more traditional, or they're just like, Hopper's not where we want him to be. We already talked about McDuffie. Like Jacob Rodriguez would be a guy I think the Packers front office would like if they can get past the height weight kind of combo there. And I think he'd be a fan favorite very, very quickly based on the way he plays.
Yeah, I think that's the popular one with a lot of them. I talk with JJ Leahy and Jake Shavink and those guys, and that's the very popular pick amongst the circle that we run in. I agree with him. The only thing that I had for a knock as I throw my phone around here was that I thought his hips were a little stiff when it came to coverage, that he could get a little stiff with that. But otherwise, yeah, athletic. He seemed to track the ball well, solid tackler. But I did say with the way this class is rounding out, he's probably going to be gone by the time the Packers pick, unless... This is where the weird part happens, because we all remember what happened with Edge Cooper. Edge Cooper was supposed to be the guy that was taken in the first round, was supposed to, he wasn't even supposed to make it into the second round when the Packers picked again. They still were able to trade down and end up with Edge Cooper. So we all know how that happens. I don't know how much teams are putting a premium on linebackers unless they're a surefire, like a Sonny Styles or something like that, or an Avril Reese, just unless they're surefire like that. So if he's there, I would have to say it would be really hard for Goody not to select him. It would have to really depend on what the corner and the DT board looks like. But it would be a long, long look at him. You mentioned Golday out of Cincinnati, and I tried to watch some of him, and it was rough for me. He looked very robotic, and not in like the good robotic way, but the real he was stiff. He was, very excuse me, calculated in his movements, and I think that hindered him in some way with his play, because like I said, it just seemed like Arnold out there as Terminator, and just was rough moving. If he could somehow figure out how to loosen up, then I think the sky is the limit for him. So I mean, like I said, if he can loosen that up, let's see. Yeah, super stiff. Even when he was standing in his stance, he's got an idea of what to do in coverage, but his stiffness limits him. And sometimes he can take some bad angles when he's tackling. So, sometimes the misses happen. But I wonder again if that has to do with his stiffness. So if they took him, they see something in him for sure, whatever, I'll be with it. But he would not be my ideal. we're talking round 2, probably if out of that group, I would be more apt for Josiah Trotter. He kind of reminds me of Chris McClellan that we talked about with the defensive tackle position, that he's a jack of all trades but a master of none, where he's going to be good at almost everything he does, but he's not going to be that elite guy. And that could be honestly something the Packers could use, in that he can cover, but he's not the greatest at coverage. He can rush, but he's not the greatest at rushing, but he's pretty good at it. And that could be something that would give, like Mike was talking earlier about Edge, that could be something that frees Edge up to do what Edge does, and also give you an extra guy out there that can run the defense.
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Linebacker is one of my
Mike, you
least
okay
favorite
over there?
positions. Oh,
Did
yeah.
he freeze?
Oh, I can see him.
Okay.
Oh, I see him, but I think he's frozen.
Oh no, I
Oh.
can hear him. I can hear him
Okay.
too. He's moving. Now he's gone.
There we go. He was frozen on the screen for a minute.
So I could hear everything you guys said. So I'm gonna be totally honest with everyone. Linebacker is one of the positions I hate to scout most because I feel like it's one of those positions where, because of how college offenses operate, how wide the hashes are on college fields, how prevalent spread is in the college game, linebackers don't do a lot of pro linebacker things in college anymore. There's not a lot of block take-ons. There's not a lot, the angles are all different in run support, all those kind of things. And so there's a lot of like, how good is the tape? How good is this? How good is that? There's some parts to Rodriguez's game where some of his angles, I'm kind of like, I can't tell if he didn't read it quite right or if it's because of his responsibilities, from a pre-snap standpoint to a post-snap transition, all that kind of stuff. There's points where it almost seems like he can be a step late to the ball, but usually when he sees it right, he plays it out really well, makes a tackle. My only concern for him is he's a little bit T-Rex armed, and unlike some another former Big 12 linebacker with shorter arms, Ty Summers, Rodriguez at least remembers that he has arms attached to both his shoulders, and he will wrap them when he tries to tackle people. The intriguing comp, and he doesn't play exactly the same way, but the way that he measures out both athletically and physically is a lot very similar to Levante David, who came into the NFL as a lighter, undersized linebacker. Levante's arms are like a half-inch longer, but in terms of like the upside you'd hope to get out of a linebacker like Rodriguez, and I could see it playing out that way for him in the NFL, is to have like a long Levante David type career where the times that he shows the plus instincts, the plus play read, field vision, and reading, those do play up. And that's the thing, is it's like linebacker is hard, whether at the college or NFL level, because it's like the times that half the time you're uncovered, it's like, did my D lineman really eat blocks up so well that I'm truly free to the ball, or is this a trick play kind of thing? And I'm, it's the old like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry cartoons where it like fades whatever character out, and it's just a jackass kind of thing and stuff like that. And it's like, oh no, I've gone the wrong way. But I say all that to say, like, if you get the best version of what Rodriguez shows on tape, that's a really good 8 to 10 year player in the NFL, like I said, if it all works out. And that's where I do think that, his best upside comes from. Like I said, it doesn't take much squinting of the eyes to say, like, I can see how that plays out well, especially because there's parts of me that's still a little old schoolish, where I still do want to have some 240-pound linebackers in my lineup who are a little more of the quote-unquote body type that you're used to and stuff. But at the same time, it's so much more of a space game. Your linebackers have to be able to run sideline to sideline. They have to be able to get back in zone coverage. And Rodriguez does show the ability to do all of that at different points of his game film. And so it'll be really interesting. And like I said, for them to take a linebacker in round 2, given the Zaire trade, given their needs at cornerback, defensive tackle, that defensive tackle has been tent poled a little bit with the Hargrave signing, but Hargrave is 32, 32,
33.
33, yeah. So that's a short term, and they do need to they do need to add talent at the position, especially given that what could be going out the door in free agency. Whereas linebacker, Edge is still young. Zaire is under contract for a couple years. Hopper is under contract for a couple years and has shown some upside in the handful of snaps he's gotten over the few games he got real defensive snaps in. But it'll be really interesting to see yeah, I know some people say you don't read too much into this or that with draft picks, but if they take Rodriguez or any of these guys you listed, Andrew, in the second round, it says a lot to what they think of, honestly, what they think of Zaire's long-term prognosis, what they think of where Hopper is in his progression, and how, the whole, are they treating this position with a little more TLC, or is it still on the back burner kind of thing and stuff. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what direction they go. I agree with you though, Joe, what you said about Trotter is he's just a good football player. I could see him being a pretty decent blitzer at the pro level, but I think he is just on film he's a little bit smaller Nile Diggs kind of player, where it's not a name that you'll recognize if you're not a fan of the team who drafts him, but it's oh, he's got free agents. He's got free agents interest when it's 4 years down the road. Yeah, because he's a really good, solid player kind of thing and stuff. So I could see that being Trotter's upside too. And with Golday, it is sort of like the Quay Schlesinger mold a little bit, where it's that guy looks like how you want your Mike linebacker to look. There's a little bit of, I hope he's going to go in the right direction with him. But when it connects on tape, it does look really good because the height, weight, speed, physical package, it plays up when he does, and I'm going to say that a lot in this episode, when he sees it correctly. But like I said, that's why it's a hard position to play, especially in college, because the hash marks, like I said, are so wide. Teams line up in weird, wide formations to get their playmakers out in space. And it's your linebacker has to cover, especially if they're in some kind of outside linebacker, you're responsible from either outside shoulder of the guard or tackle to the slot receiver, who could be out 10 yards from the inline line of scrimmage players. So it's you have this cone of responsibility that you can barely see from your peripherals and stuff. And so it's yeah, I understand if your keys are a little off when you're trying to read it in the heat of the moment and stuff. And like I said, that's why I do hate scouting the position, because it's okay, it comes down to the Isaiah Simmons thing at Clemson, where it's what's his face? The coaches, Venables, just funneled everything to Simmons. Simmons didn't have to read anything, because it was everything is getting funneled to Simmons, and we're just gonna trust him to make every tackle or every play kind of thing. And it's okay, but how true is that gonna be for an NFL player? Whereas you have a Fred Warner, where it's okay, he looks solid at Utah State, but it's Mountain West, and then it turns out this dude is reading and calling everything out pre-snap, and he makes all the adjustments. He makes all the pre-snap adjustments, gets everyone set, and then on top of it is super on top of his own shit once the play starts and all. So that's the part where it's really hard to gauge when you watch these positions in a college game versus trying to project it into an NFL's defensive scheme. Now, Andrew, to get back, you mentioned there's one guy that you're that's the last guy in round 3 that you're I'm interested, and then it's a gap to day 3. Please drop name now.
I'm just saying, obviously the NFL is not beholden to mock drafts, but I will say, when you look at, and the reason why I like NFL mock draft database is because it aggregates everything, and you can kind of see windows of where people expect players to go. And the one player in that 3rd round range, it's Pitt's Kyle Lewis. I am not a fan personally, but like I can see the upside there, right?
Yeah.
Like I think the movement skills are really, really intriguing. He just seems like a guy to me that's going to be more a specialist in the NFL than like a full-time player, but to each their own.
Especially given his size.
Yeah.
He measured in at 6 foot 220. So he's going to be light. He's going to be a little bit more compact. I kind of agree. I kept seeing like the NFL or NFL.com has him as like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 6th ranked linebacker. And I was like, okay, so I watched him and he is athletic. There's no doubt about it. Speed and quickness look good, but his tackling looked iffy. He was small, raw athleticism. So maybe if somebody can get him in there and, teach him what he's actually supposed to be doing, he could be a really good linebacker. But yeah, I had question marks all over him too.
There's an element that where it would feel kind of like it would kind of feel like the Hopper pick all over again, especially if they took him in round 3, where it's like, okay, like which position are you drafting him for, and are we going to just be in the 220s to 230s at the second level of the defense? So, yeah,
And I was going to mention that it's going to be kind of hard to find guys that, as Mafi would put it, fit the Packer mold and fit these measurements, because a lot of these guys are light. I was going through a lot of them, and not a lot of them weigh over 230. There are some, but a lot of them, they top out at 230. And in college, they were playing underweight. So, like, one that I watched, and like I said, NFL.com has him listed at mid tiers. Taurine York out of A&M, Texas A&M. He had some injury concerns, so there's hard to find good tape on him, but he's 5'11", 226. And then there was, let me look at it real quick, because I mentioned him in our group chat, and I completely forgot his name off the top of my head. That Mafi said he was small, and I said, well, this is what he measures, and that's not too bad. Scooby Williams. Scooby Williams was another one that I thought looked really good, but he, according to Mafi, he was only playing at like in the low 220s in college. Well, he measured in at 231 at the combine, so he was able to keep his athleticism at 231, but is he going to be able to bulk up to the 240 range that the Packers usually look for? So I'm wondering if they're going to have to start changing some of their measurement requirements just to fit some of these guys in there.
really interesting to keep an eye on, because yeah, like you said, the 245-pound, 250-pound college linebackers, they just don't really exist anymore, because most of those guys are playing
The
defensive
edge.
end now. And like even Reese isn't like that big, but he's one of the bigger linebacker prospects, and they're already like, oh, let's just get him on the end of the line of scrimmage kind of thing. So as we move along, so we're into day 3 now, which I think is the more realistic range of where, if Green Bay adds to the room, they would, because like I said, more pressing needs at other positions and how this draft is loaded. Andrew, what are some names that you've got your eye on at this position?
So I'm going to mention 3. One that is completely impossible, not happening for Green Bay, but I need to pigeonhole him in here anyways. So the first player that I'll mention for day 3 that I like a lot, Alabama's Deontay Lawson. He, again, little light, but like I just love, like, to me, he's super steady. There were points where, like, as an underclassman, maybe even coming into this year, people had really high expectations for him. He's just not that player athletically. But like, I love, he's assignment sure. I like the angles he takes. Like, he's going to be a really solid player. And so, is there always the potential that somebody comes in, their instincts are so good that they're like the next Henry To'oTo'o? Sure. But like that's not what my expectation is. I think this is a guy who can play core special teams. He's a guy who's going to be really assignment sure. He gives you 4 years of like that solid play, and then you can figure out where you're going from there. The player who the Packers absolutely aren't touching, but I just can't quit him. Speaking of high draft expectations, is Harold Perkins Jr. from LSU. He measured in even lower than I could have possibly imagined. Let me see, 6'1", 223. And like I knew he was too small, but that's crazy. I don't know. I feel like he did play special teams at LSU. He was pretty good at special teams. I think you draft him in that like 5th, 6th round range, and just your expectations are this guy is only a special teamer, and you get him to dedicate himself to that craft, and I think he becomes an elite level special teams player. If there's packages that you can fit him in on, and like the way that they went with like the wild card that I wasn't expecting of Colin Oliver last year, like maybe there's a special package where you can get him and you're just saying, hey, race around the edge to the quarterback. Try to generate as much outside pressure and force them back inside. And maybe that's the play where you have Micah doing a spin move back to the inside, and you can generate some stuff. Anyways, I don't know. Not going to happen, but
they did have the meeting with him though, so I mean, there is, depending on where he's sitting at, there is the possibility.
Never say never. Never dash this boy's dreams. The last one that I'm going to mention, I try to be really cognizant of not jersey scouting. And so when they say that, they mean the front of the jersey typically. But in this case, it's the back of the jersey too. And that's Lander Barton from Utah. Like, sign me up for another Barton linebacker in the NFL. But like, you talked about players that are too light. He measured in at 6'5", 233. He's a big dude. He's super solid on tape and nothing spectacular. He's not going to be a really elite pass coverage guy, but I think like you get him into zone and he'll be where he needs to be, and he's long enough to disrupt some passing angles. But I think he's an early down player. Again, I think you can probably get him to buy in on special teams. And so those are the kind of guys on day 3. Like, either give me one elite skill, like quickness and bend in Perkins, or just give me the most solid college player that you can.
I agree. Like, that's where I've always, especially when you get into that like round 6, round 7 range. That's why like I'll always oh shucks, what's his name? I can't the like one from Southeast Missouri State, the defensive end was
Kendall Donnerson.
Yeah. And I'm like, or the like Donnerson, Jeff Janis, MVS, EQ, like they're not all gonna work out, but I'm like, just give me the highest RAS athletes you can get at some point, and just see if your coaching can teach them how to football at some point. And I'm not a Perkins believer because, like I said, it's not just that he's so small, but like he's had some massive injury issues over his college career. Like he tore his ACL, he had another knee thing and stuff. Still looks explosive as hell, even when when he's come back from the previous injuries. It is like I joked that we already have a Colin Oliver at home when it comes to him, but the avenue for Perkins to get on this roster, like you said, Andrew, is he's just sitting there in round 6. And Goot has shown in every year as a GM that he cannot stop scratching his itch for a nickel linebacker body type. He's traded up for Burks. He's taken a couple safeties who kind of fit that mold. Most recently, Oladapo. Hopper kind of fits that mold where, he's not the athlete though that Burks or Oladapo are, but it's like, this like 220-ish linebacker who's, can sit in like hook zones and stuff. And there is that and even Oliver kind of, I know he was drafted as more of an end, but it's like, is he a Sam with like shorter arms kind of thing and stuff? And like, yeah, I joke, but at the same time, it's one of those where I'm like, at some point, Goot may do the value was too good to pass him up here kind of thing and stuff. So yeah, as much as I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it happen. I never thought in a million years they would take Oliver like that. I watched his film. He was super fun on film, and like obviously now that we took him, I'm like, fuck it, let's see what he can do. But like there is no way they're gonna take this like 6'1", 240 end with 30.5-inch arms, and they did. So like it shows that when you're late enough in the draft and just other positions of need aren't there kind of thing, they will just say like, okay, this guy, like we had a really high rating and he somehow fell down the board kind of thing. And that, like I said, that's how you get a Perkins on. I do think that some team is going to be like in round 3 or 4, they're going to be like the highs on the film are too good, let's just take him here. And I don't think there's any way where the Packers would take him there. But if he's there late on day 3, it's kind of one of those, oh, he's still there. Like, when it's ticking through, if you're watching on NFL Network and it's DJ's best remaining available, or if you're on ESPN and it's Mel's best available, and it's like there's a couple names that have just been there for like 4 rounds kind of thing. It's like, oh, maybe it's time to just take one of those at this point. Any players that you just like, I know you kind of pointed at Lewis as one of them, but any other players that you're like, you'll just kind of like close your eyes, grit your teeth if the Packers take him, be like, I really don't know about that one, but he's a Packer now, so I got to get behind it kind of pick.
Lewis is the obvious one for me, just because of where his expected draft range is and where I view him as. Everybody else, because like it's basically just a list of day 3 players, and so I'm like, who do I prefer? If it's Lander Barton, I'm going to be really excited about it. If it's anybody else, I'm going to kind of be like, oh, okay, I can see that. It's solid. But yeah, like weirdly, I think most of the players fall relatively chalk on my board this year at linebacker, with a few variations. But yeah, Kyle Lewis is probably the one where not only would I be like surprised from like the actual player itself, but for me, I just don't see that role necessarily being something that the Packers have typically like prioritized.
Joe, any names that you had that stand out that we didn't go over?
Oh, I got a bunch of them. We got a whole list here. So I'm going to throw 3 of them out right now because you mentioned RAS, and these guys have high RAS scores. So I'm going to go the opposite of Andrew when it comes to the Alabama backers. I like Justin Jefferson, and I think it would be really neat to have Justin Jefferson, the linebacker, lay out Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, obviously, with Justin Jefferson comes some drawbacks. He's 6 foot, 223, so he's really light. He's really compact. His RAS score is an unofficial 8.40, so he didn't do the 3-cone and those tests, but ran a 4.57. You can see it on film that he's got everything that you want in a linebacker, but he struggles with it because of his size. He will take a hit, he will give a hit, but if the guy's bigger than him, it's kind of like if Kawano would come over and try hitting me, it'd be like swatting a fly, So it just, although I would love him as kind of a McDuffie replacement per se, because he would give you what McDuffie could with a little bit better more athleticism than what McDuffie could do. The other one that I've got is one that Jake and JJ kind of brought up a couple weeks ago on on the Derailed podcast, out of TCU, Caleb Earlams, or I really liked what I saw out of him. His RAS is a 9.72. So, he's got the athletic score, good size. He tracked the ball well. His coverage looked good. When he plays full speed, he has great speed, but he hesitated a little bit too often. So I think he overthinks things. His tackling was pretty good. I think he could be another one, kind of like I mentioned with Trotter, that he's more of a jack of all trades, master of none type deal, where he's going to be the guy that can do a little bit of everything. Again, he's probably fits the system a little bit better because he measured in 6'2", 234. His shuttle was pretty crappy and he didn't run the 3-cone, but he had a 4.47 40-yard dash. So that helped him. But I think my favorite, and I kind of started falling in love with this guy the more and more I watched him out of BYU, is Jack Kelly. You know, he really popped on the film. More quick than fast, coverage looked good, tracks well. He can be a little bit lacking when it comes to tackling, meaning he can tend to miss a tackle or two because he's put himself out of position. But he would probably be the type of guy that Quano was kind of talking about, where, you know, he's got a 981 RAS score. Give me the high RAS score, throw him out there, see what he can do, you know, take a swing, fling the shit at the wall, hope it sticks type deal. So I really liked him. There was one other that, Red Murdoch out of Buffalo. Tackling machine, almost 200 tackles every year, a decent quickness, good size. I'm trying to think what he measured in at. I think it was like 6'3", 240 or something like that. Decent pass rush, coverage looks good. He tracked the ball well. The question mark I had is his speed. He wasn't at the combine, so I couldn't see what his straight line speed was, but I do wonder if maybe he does lack a little bit in the speed. So I think Mafi said the pro day is the 31st of March. So if he runs, that would be the thing that I would look more for at his pro day. But those are a few. Of course, there's an Iowa guy that I can talk about, but I'll let Mike talk about his Michigan guy before I do my Iowa guy. But that's what I got right now. If we could come away with one of those guys, I think I'd be pretty happy.
Okay, so since Joe tossed the softball up, I gotta ask you, Mertig. I have my position on this. Jason Barham, do you have him as more of a off-ball linebacker or as an edge in the NFL?
I have him as a linebacker right now. I mean, I know like there's some multiplicity to what he can do, but to me, like I saw more of a skill set for like that physical off-ball linebacker. Pass coverage would be a concern there, but I could see. I don't know if the Packers want to get into more hybrid stuff with the new defense, but yeah, I could see Barham, really kind of providing both skill sets. But yeah, I would start him as a bigger off ball.
I think his future is on the edge. I just think that some of the stuff, the down to down eye discipline is a little concerning for me, and that's as someone who is like rooting for him the past 2 seasons. You know, when again, it's my dead horse beaten to a pulp line of when he sees what you're expecting him to see, it looks so good because he's so explosive. When he triggers downhill, he comes with he is just a load of bricks that comes through the line of scrimmage. He hits hard, clean form tackles when he reads it well. He had the play in the opener this season where he sacks I think it was Fresno State's quarterback, and he got thrown out of the game for targeting. And it's like, it's not his fault that he's 6'2.5" and the quarterback is listed at 5'11", and I think he's like 5'8". And like, it's one of those, like, the targeting rule is broken. It's not his fault he's half a foot taller than the guy he's tackling, kind of thing. But it just shows like how much power he brings when he gets to the ball carrier. But like you said, there's some moments where it's kind of like, how did you not see that they're running a sweep at you and you just dive inside, kind of thing? You dive inside the B gap, and it's like, Yeah, like I joked that you want him on the edge and you need an overhang defender behind him because it's like he's gonna make you a lot of plays, but the few that he doesn't get quite right, it's like, ooh, that's 20 yards down the field, like very easy and wide open for. So that's my concern and why I have his future at edge. But if like I said, if it turns out that for whatever reason, him playing like Sam at the NFL level limits, his read and react necessities, I'm like, okay, fine, like I'll take that because what he can do as a third down player is really impressive, whether it's an at the snap blitzer or as a delayed blitzer. He just ignites through it's really edge like, and even Quay, like, Quay gets a lot of like crap for like what he did and didn't do as like a read and react zone defender and stuff, but both Edge and Quay are in the top like 5% as like A gap trigger blitzers kind of thing. And Barham is, I know they played him on the Michigan played him on the edge a lot this past season, but really in 2024 when he was allowed to blitz up the A gap, he really screwed up a lot of blocking schemes for the Wolverines defense. And it would be one where like if they got him like round 3 or somehow he slipped to 4, I'd be really excited about that, just because like I said, at some point you've got to get to go, and we've kind of alluded to it, it's like what can you do to affect the passing game? And I know that we'd be like really loaded up on these kind of sawed off from like an arm length standpoint of like edge rusher types, in terms of like you have Parsons already, you have Oliver, and then you would be adding Barham to that mix. But it's like one of these guys is gonna, Parsons is gonna draw all the attention, and you just need one of an Oliver or Barham to like, oh, I've got someone who's only got half their attention on me, and I don't even forget half attacking half the man. I'm attacking like quarter of a man. It's like, yeah, I can chase down basically any quarterback in the league, and both of Oliver for his size and Barham for anyone's size lights up quarterbacks like nothing else. So that's where like I said, he's okay in coverage if you're like, okay, you see that tight end, go cover him kind of thing. But it's like if he has to like compound read a mesh route, it's like like he's gonna be the guy that gets meshed a lot if he's dropping into zone coverage. But on like a Barham, you go get that guy. Like he has the athleticism to match in coverage or to just rip by someone as a blitzer. So that's where his upside is. And like I said, I have my doubts in how he plays as an off-ball guy in the NFL, but just what he can do rushing the passer, he's gonna have upside and just playmaking ability that I think is going to take him out of the range of where Green Bay would be comfortable drafting him. But if he slipped into a range, like I said, in that round 3, round 4, and you can get him like where they got Sorrell last year, that'd be a really good value pick for the Packers.
Just to kind of throw this out here for Barham, according to the Raz website, if you put him in as a linebacker, he's a 9.42 unofficial, and 2 of his Raz comps are Clay Matthews and Quay Walker. So that would be interesting. But that wasn't even the guy that I was talking about. There's another Michigan one that I was giving you to, is Jimmy Rolder. So
Rolder is like a lighter version of Rodriguez, where it's like just your throwback, really heady linebacker. I didn't measure as well as I didn't think he was going to measure like super well in terms of his arm length or anything like that, but I didn't think he was a sub 31 inch guy. But like,
it's just only half an inch. You can stretch that a little bit.
It's what you do with it. But no, like he really, especially because they had some like kind of funky stuff happen with their defensive structure this season. They had the guy who transferred him from Nebraska. He just medically retired, basically too many concussion issues, just retired like with 5 games to go in the season. And Rolder really did step up and was the backbone to the defense. Hey, like for Packers fans, he's from Wisconsin kind of thing, like there's that tie and stuff. But would just be like, I half jokingly, half seriously say he's the to go back a few years, he's the Jake Ryan, Blake Martinez pick. You like take this guy in the 5th round, and it's not gonna like blow anyone's socks off, but then you're gonna be like, oh, this guy's starting and he's making like 10 tackles a game, and he's going to get beat by the more athletic players, but he's like assignment sure. He can blitz every once in a while and he can catch the ball when it's thrown to him. Cool. Like one of those, like I said, like with Rodriguez, where it's like I wouldn't be surprised if he has like a 6 to 10 year career in the NFL, just because it's like, is he excellent at anything? Not necessarily, but he's good. He does a lot of things really well, and just outside of the athleticism, doesn't have huge holes in his game. So, kind of scheme dependent, but a player that I think Gannon could find useful.
And really looking at I didn't watch him because I figured I would give Kawano all the props in the world to be able to talk about his guy. But outside of having a 30.5-inch arm length, his shuttle and 3-cone are amazing. 4.26 shuttle, and then he had a 7 flat for a 3-cone. So I mean, yeah, he really fits that Packers mold when it comes to those agility scores. He did not run a 40, so I couldn't tell you what his straight line speed is, but 36-inch vert, 911 broad, 4.26 shuttle, 7 flat, 3-cone at 6'2", 238. That's pretty good for somebody like of that size.
And Mafi did ask me why. I have no idea why he didn't run the 40. You don't normally see guys skip on the 40 and do everything else. Like it's kind of odd. And unless he's nursing some, but then again, like if you're nursing an injury, I don't see you doing the explosives or agility testing, so I can't speak to that.
If he's nursing something and he still ran a 7 flat 3 and a 4.28 or a 4.26 shuttle, what the hell is he going to run as a 40?
Yeah, like I said, I don't think he was gonna blow your socks off, but I thought he was gonna run like a 4.7, 4.75, which is fine for like a Mike linebacker type and stuff. The shuttle and the cones show on film because he's really good at like when he reads the puller correctly, he's good at dipping under the block and like redirecting into the gap to make a tackle behind the puller and stuff. So you see that action on film. Like I said, the lack of length shows up because if he wins the strike point, he can take on a blocker. But if the lineman gets his hands on him, he's kind of like he's going to try to re-anchor in the hole. But if he can't do that, he kind of just will get washed because he can't get off the block kind of thing and stuff. So, and like I said, that's one of those. That's just how linebackers are built these days. I'm sort of a dinosaur in the like. I want to see a 6'3", 250 guy who can take, like a Jeremiah Trotter who can stun a pulling guard kind of thing. Those guys just don't really exist anymore. Like we've said, they're all playing edge now at this point in their careers. But like I said, Rolder, it's gonna be one of those like doesn't get announced. It'll just come across the ticker in like round 5, round 6 kind of picks. But as long as his health holds up, he'll have a solid, decently length career kind of thing. So yeah, like he'll have like a Milano career. Like that's kind of where I put his what kind of staying power in the NFL I think he'll have.
He'll be the guy that the orangutan will announce for the pick this year. So I just throw out the Iowa guy real quick. He's not going to be your top of the line type because the real knock on him is he's only had 1 year starting experience. Most of the other time it was pure special teams if he got in the game at all. RAS score is pretty amazing for an unofficial for what he is. He's a little bit small, 6'1", 231. 4.56 40, 40 vert, 10.03 broad. So he really did that, but he just didn't do any of the agility testing. On film, he's the try hard. I've said this a lot about the guys that come out of Iowa. They're blue collar guys. They're the lunch pail. They're going to come in, do their job, go over and above what they need to do. I think he's going to go the route of a Neiman or a Welch and be that special teams contributor. And if he happens to, push for playing time, then he does. But he's got the athletic ability, but he just doesn't have the experience.
All right. Any other UDFA level guys that you've got your eye on, Andrew, that you kind of have earmarked?
No, I mean, now I'm intrigued because there's a couple guys that you each mentioned that are catching my attention. Jimmy Rolder from Illinois, not Wisconsin, so
Ah,
that's a 2 point deduction right there. But no, I mean, I think that's exactly what you're looking for, right? Like, as a UDFA, who's a really good athlete, or who brings special teams value, or who might have a little bit of sticking power, like a really strong trait. I mean, years ago, I was like over the moon. I think I was still writing for this, might have been like one of my first years at Packers Talk, but I was like, oh my gosh, there's this like uber athletic guy from Miami the Packers signed as a UDFA. He has no idea what he's doing because he was a wide receiver and now he's a corner, and he is now my favorite player ever. And like, that's Sam Shields for those of you who don't know, but like, that guy was a huge part of them winning a Super Bowl, right? So like, when I'm looking at UDFA's, I like the really solid guys who maybe stuck around in college for 5 or 6 years and like they're just steady. I think that works well as a potential special teamer because probably one of Welch or Neiman makes the team, but like, do you have a guy that can go on the practice squad and fill in if you need to? And then the other thing is like, who's somebody who's just a really, really good athlete, but maybe doesn't understand how to play football yet. And like, the roster looks pretty full at this point for Green Bay. I think there's maybe an opportunity for a UDFA, maybe, but probably not with their draft picks. So I'm looking for guys that can provide like some practice squad value, and then later in the year are like heady enough to come up and provide something. So yeah, those are two really interesting names that I have not checked out yet.
yeah, Jamon Johnson was that guy last year, where
Yeah.
it's like he has
Yeah.
like a 9 something Raz card, and
But he had no idea how to do
Yeah.
anything with it.
yeah, as like just to we were laughing with I was laughing with Mafias. He's like, people are like, oh, Jamon Johnson. He's like, I like the other linebacker better, the other Kentucky guy better, kind of thing. I think the other Kentucky guy is the better player, kind of thing. But it's the whole like, do you want Brooks Reed or do you want the guy the Packers draft?
Oh, don't bring that up. I was an Elmore guy. I was, so shut up.
But yeah, especially at linebacker, it just goes to show like it's so hard to tell who of the players like truly understands what they're looking at and who is like being given the like the drawn out map to the gold pot at the end of the rainbow kind of thing, because it's like you can just it's hard to explain to like people who don't watch the player, like watch scouting film a lot, but it's so once you see guys in an NFL setting, because of how much more condensed the NFL game is from like a formation and play structure standpoint as it is to college, it becomes so clear quickly like, oh, that guy understands like follow the pulling guard or the fullback and stuff, and it's like, or you get the I got 21 guys going right and I got one guy going left kind of thing. So it's one of those where it's really hard to tell from like just an initial like scouting point of view. That's where the interviews and all that kind of stuff does come into play. But yeah, like it's one of those projection positions where it's hard to tell who's gonna pick it up and who doesn't. Edge is one of those, like I said, my concern was I was like, the highlights look really good, but I don't know if it's hard to project. Does he have it between the ears, or is it sort of an Isaiah Simmons situation where it's like, it doesn't matter what we tell you the scheme is, we just need you to go screw up the play kind of thing. And like,
Yeah.
I think that, I think that question to Edge's game is what honestly Packers fans should be thankful for, because I don't know if he is a Packer if that wasn't a concern for him. So it's one of those where, as much as anyone says like this scouting department, that scouting department, there's no surefire answer because none of these players are sure things. There's a lot of like projection, uncertainty of like what a defensive scheme is and how much they understand what they're doing. And sometimes you just got to get a little lucky and have the guys who are a little bit more savants than they let on. But Andrew, you got any more names just that popped into your head off the top, or are you kind of set on this one?
No, I mean, like, just throwing a name against the wall. There's Namdi Obiezor out of TCU. Like,
Yep.
he's a really athletic guy. Like, probably more of like a straight line speed. He's got okay agility testing numbers, but like that's a guy where I think, like, you draft, or you probably sign him as a UDFA, and then you hope, like, this is a guy who can win a job as a special teamer, maybe kick Welsh and or Neiman off the roster, and
Oh,
then
don't put it
you.
that way. My Hawkeye guys, I
have
can't say kick them off.
no allegiance to Iowa. They can be on the practice squad if they want. But no, I mean, like, so a player, it probably is a practice squad level player, but like has the athleticism to be an NFL player, and then you just hope that he can figure out the, like, reading the game part of it. So, like, that gives you a really nice floor, and then you have some ceiling to go along with it, which is, like I said, exactly what I'm looking for in EDFA.
Right on.
Well, before we completely get out of here, we did have a couple of things come across social media. So first one is from a Brian Mafi. First, tell Mertig I miss him and that I love him. Also, he needs to come back to Twitter and break more coaching news.
No, hard pass.
And then
I just want to say that the guy I was wrong about was a candidate again, and I said I'm not touching this.
And then the other one is Goose_MN. If you could bring any Packer from the past 15 years and put them on today's roster when they are in their prime, why would it be Jeff Janis?
So
special teams matter.
This is now unprovable, but I did accurately predict the Packers that year were going to draft both Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis. So I am taking credit for that. I believe it was the wrong 4th round pick for Abbrederis, but I was pretty close. If past 15 years, does that that only gets me back to 2011, so that.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick Collins. Like, it technically started the 2011 season.
Yeah.
So that's always my answer. Like, that is the what if of all what ifs, because I think if Nick Collins stays healthy, the Packers probably win at least one more Super Bowl. I think he was, granted they just choked against the Giants, but I really thought that he was the biggest difference. I can't think, like, I would go back to probably, like, prime David Bakhtiari, right? Like, because you can always use left tackle.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Either that or Bulaga for the right side, and you could kick Tom either left side or at center, where he supposedly is a all-pro future center.
BJ Raji would look pretty good in this particular team.
Yeah.
And if we're cheating a little bit, he wasn't in his prime, but if it's like he was on the team 15 years ago.
It just says in his prime.
So Charles Woodson. So, like,
there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, like, there's a lot of really good options.
Who I would go? And this one just popped in my head because if they're in their prime, Nick Barnett. And that fits with what we're talking about now, because we could have Barnett and I think he was still there in 2011 because they just came off the 2010.
No, he wasn't. They let him go after the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'd have to stretch the rules a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you could go Desmond Bishop because I think he could be in the same boat.
Yeah.
Well, no, I tell you what, we'll do a callback. Sam Shields. We desperately need a cornerback.
I think it's so wild that he was literally made the team because it's like, we need someone who can run really fast and can run with the Deshaun Jacksons of the world. So that's why you're gonna make the roster and you're gonna start week 1 rookie in a position you didn't play in college for more than a year, and then he had his lumps. Almost got cut at one point, like in 2012, and then became one of the, like, top 5 corners in the NFL, like, at the peak of his career, and his his epitaph is that he averaged multiple interceptions in NFC Championship games, which is like no small feat of him. And it's so funny because it's like his thing was like, oh yeah, he couldn't stick at receiver because he couldn't catch the ball very well. And yet in the key games of his career, it's like, what's he known for? Interceptions in the 2010 NFC Championship game. The like fingertip interception in the 2013 comeback in Dallas and stuff, and like just became this otherworldly playmaking cornerback. And it is such a bummer that his Green Bay career ended because just concussions.
Concussions.
Yeah, like it is an ultimate bummer that that's how his career ended because he still had years left to give the team. And yeah,
And to go back to that, I don't think he even thought he was going to make the roster. Because I remember being up there at training camp for those were the times that I could go spend like 2.5 weeks up at training camp. And me and him would sit there and have conversations every day after practice. And it felt like he was one of those UDFAs that, they signed to the roster just to see what they have. And he's probably not going to make it. Maybe they can stash him on the practice squad. And that's just the way it felt with that year with him, and then just to see what he did throughout his career, and if he could stay concussion free, what he could, that just amazing what he could have been.
Jermichael Finley is the other answer.
Okay,
This offense would be.
I love how we've talked about none of the
unstoppable.
receivers. But, yeah,
really, we didn't. I mean, you could throw out there that if Golden can get better, he's already at what Greg Jennings could, he's that Greg Jennings type. Watson, you could argue, fits the Jordy Nelson style role.
I wish he was as durable as Jordy was. Like,
Right.
my God. Like, up until the ACL, like, I remember all the jokes about, like, Jordy getting his bursa sack removed and stuff like that, and he played all the games that season. I do wonder what Jennings looks like in this offense, though, because, like, his ability to, like, just separate from man coverage at will, but also be a deep threat at the same time. It's like, I know he's done it to himself, but, like, he had one of the weirdest skill sets for a receiver, and, like, I know the wheels did kind of fall off after he left Green Bay just physically, but, like, at his peak,
And
he was
mentally.
just... At his peak, though, he was one of the best receivers in the NFL. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it would be really interesting to see what he would do in this offensive scheme.
And then I
But-
could think you could put Wicks in the James Jones mold. So I really don't think, as much as it would be neat to have one of those guys on there, I don't think that's the biggest one that we would need back.
Yep. But we could sit here for hours talking about which players we
Hey.
want from the last 15 years. on
I
this team.
appreciate the guys reaching out, even though
Absolutely.
Mafi, is Mafi. But before Mike finishes out, I just want to say we had like an influx of new listeners come in on this last episode. Please stick around. We have great episodes coming out. Drop us reviews, give us likes, retweet, the old saying, tell one friend, if one friend tells 10 friends and those friends all tell 10 friends, this thing can grow bigger and better. And, it would make me feel good. I don't know about Kawano, but it would make me feel good.
We just want to hit the 100 subscribers on Facebook so we can live stream there too. On that note, please follow us on your social medias at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Like I said, we're trying to hit that 100 subscribers on Facebook so we can live stream there. Biggest one coming up is day 2 of the draft. We do our live stream. Andrew, this is your live for the audience invitation to join us then, if you're free and able. And you do not have to sit there through the whole 5-6 hours of day 2 of the draft. Please, if you have any free time, come join us. Even if it is only to like, hey, I'm here for the pick kind of thing. We enjoy anyone rolling through. Like last year, it was literally just me and Mafi sitting there because Joe had not the greatest internet reception as he was at
I was
Lambeau.
in Green Bay,
Yeah, so we were like Joe from a bench and Joe from random seating area near the, Joe, point the camera at the draft. Stuff. So, but it's a hoot and a holler, and we try to keep it interesting here. Like Joe said, we really do appreciate when we get new listeners in. We hope you'll stick around. My eyes kind of just glazed over as Joe mentioned that, because that was just the two of us last week shooting the breeze about special teams and how, gosh darn, this better be it for Brandon McManus. And I don't care.
There must be a lot of people out there that really hate Brandon McManus like we do, because the clip that I posted from the episode has hit like triple-digit viewers on it and almost and double-digit likes on all of it, and the episode like had an extreme influx of listeners. So it must be a common thread. So maybe we just need to trash Brandon McManus for the rest of this podcast.
Andrew, please tell everyone how they can follow you, how they can find you, all the work you do. Where can everyone find your work?
Yeah, I am exclusively on Blue Sky on social media. So sorry, Brian, not returning to X, but I will be. Currently, I'm not doing a ton, but in the next week or so, I'll be doing a special series for Pack-A-Day leading up to the draft. So I'll have like a 10-part series. So check that out.
Awesome. Appreciate the time. I'm glad that we were able to reschedule to get you on. I'm glad that it just worked out that moving you back a weekend, we were able to get you on. I know Joe was doing his yeoman's work to make everything work out from a scheduling, and it was like, we're going this week and he's coming on next week. I was like, okay, this is good. So glad we were able to have you
start getting drained on things that you can rearrange certain things.
Super appreciate you having me.
No, absolutely. Always glad to have you on. Well, I should say Joe is glad to have you on again. I'm glad to have you on and talk to you for the first time, Andrew. But thank you so much for joining us. Like I said,
just did it. We're good.
And with that, go Pack, go, and aloha.
Packers fans out here to stay. Cheeseheads green and gold all day. Jordan Love lead us to the bay. Every game we find a way. Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for all, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for all, green and gold gonna glow. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown. Lambeau Field, our sacred ground. Feel the vibe, hear the sound. Packers fans so loud and proud. Jordan Love, he's wearing the crown.